And we're back. Stephen Peterson. When I say we're back, I haven't seen you for a week or maybe longer. If you've never seen this before, excuse me, I'm Stephen Peterson, and the program is called Patterns for Progress. And it's not because I'm good at patterns or habits or practices, principles or routines. I'm not very good at it. But I feel like I got to a point in my life just a few years ago where I was stuck. And I had to realize I'm a spontaneous person. I'm an artistic person, creative person. I want things to happen now, not tomorrow, not next week, and certainly not next year. But I started to look, and we live in patterns, habits, practices, routines. And I discovered if I pulled one pattern out, one practice, one routine out that wasn't working, that wasn't producing, and replaced it with one that did, my life changed for the better. You're not going to get perfect, excuse me. You're not going to get perfect. That's not the goal. Progress is the goal, not perfection. In fact, that's a good one to repeat after me. Progress, not perfection, is our goal. And to make progress, it's not enough to try harder. You're going to have to try smarter. And when I say pick up somebody's practice habit, pattern, routine, find somebody who's successful in the area you want to change. And just copy them. Just copy them. Well, I won't tell that one. That one's too painful. But here's the very first practice, pattern, habit, routine I changed. And most people I talk to are not aware of this. And so I want you to do this, okay? It's just one. We're going to work on one this week. And I think it's going to fit just about everybody. And it's got two parts. You got to know your strengths and admit your weaknesses. Now, when I say admit them to yourself. Don't have to tell them, oh man, am I lousy? Stop it. If they know you at all, they probably already know you're very lousy or poor at that. And it all started one day when I was listening to a guy named Ed Cole. I don't think it was a very big group, and he said, only a fool works on their weakness. Well, he didn't know it. Actually, he probably did. He offended me. That offended me. I was working hard. I had book after book after book how to turn a weakness into a strength. Well, it's like trying to turn a weed into a flower. Unless you call a weed a flower, it's always going to be a weed. A weakness is always going to be a weakness. Every one of us have strengths and weaknesses. And if you're just this poor, pitiful person and you only have one strength, well, then find out what that is and build that strength up. I'm pretty sure you have more than one. In fact, almost everybody I meet has at least one hidden strength. And the difference between a hidden strength and a weakness, they both look alike. You're not good at either one. You're not good at either one. I have a friend who's very process oriented. She's actually a better friend of my son and my daughter, but I like talking to her because when she thinks she's being spontaneous, she plans something out 4 months in advance. To say, hey, let's go to lunch 10 minutes from now, I think would just undo her. Now, part of it, she's busy. I'm not trying to make fun of her. But the other part is she's so steeped in the very thing I'm talking about. If you're great at this, you're going, well, what you're talking about is kid stuff. But I'm talking to the people who are not great at patterns. It doesn't come to them naturally. They're not sure where to start and where to stop. So here's the great place to start. You got to find out what your strengths are. If you've watched this show before, you know what this is. The little book, it carries just very, very specific notes for me. And one of them is one of the patterns I learned months ago and told you about. Write down 3 things you're grateful for. And in 21 days, your mind is going to begin to change how it processes situations and problems and opportunities. Well, I went a step further because, of course, I had to. I wrote down 3 things, but I say them out loud every day. 3 things I'm thankful for. 3 things to me that are priceless. When I first read this, I thought, I was reading it on a tough day and a bad day. And I go, man, I wished I had 3 things. You know that's a bad day. If you're breathing and your heart's beating, that's 2 good things right now. And if your heart's not beating and you're not breathing, you're not watching this. So you got at least 2 right there. And I know some people have more than others. I understand that. But you're going to have to find and celebrate and be grateful for what you do have. Everybody has something. Nobody has everything. So I wrote down 3 things. Well, now I've got something new in this book. My 3 main strengths. I know my weaknesses. I try to avoid them at all costs. But I was so offended when that guy, Ed Cole, said that because I was foolishly working on my weakness. No. Develop your strength, expand your strength to such a degree, most people will put up with your weakness just to get the benefits of your strengths. You can't have everything. So, and you don't decide your strengths, you discover them. That's saying, I know we're speaking of possibilities. Well, in America, you can be anything you want to be. Well, that's available. But, you can run a mule from sunup to sundown. They're never going to win the Kentucky Derby, no matter how hard you push them. Find your strengths. And I don't think any of you are a mule. But anyway, this friend of my son and daughter, very process-oriented, very precise. And, of course, that's what you want in an accountant. You really don't want me. 4 and 4 is 9. Well, that's close enough. Now, I wouldn't do that. But, you want somebody who's going to go oh, man, the guy who does my taxes, I don't know if he watches the show, but he drives me crazy because he reads out each number to the decimal. Then I'm going, it's in a computer. I believe you, man. Show me and I believe you. But see, that's who he is. Well, one day she started, I don't know what caused it. I think different people were saying to her, I really see an artist in you. And the way she saw herself was a strict 100% accountant. That's not putting down accountants. God bless good accountants. Bad accountants, go away. Good accountants, yeah. But she started painting, and her very first painting, I believe, was of a dog, and it was exquisite. If you do something well, the first time you do it, you waited too long. She discovered she had a strength as an artist, as someone who, I don't know what you would call it. She paints, she draws. The stuff she's doing is so good. If I drew that dog, it'll be a little stick figure with a couple of curlicues to stand for. I don't have that. My whole family's artistic. My son's artistic. My wife, my daughter, my mother, my father, my grandmother, my grandfather, on both sides, artistic. Me? But I love music, and I can put songs together, and I can paint pictures with music. I don't know if that matters to anybody. It has in the past, and it matters to me. But I don't so I don't work on my drawing skills. I don't have them. It's a weakness to me. You can get hurt and you can get jealous, but discover your strengths and begin to work on them now. I believe that's probably the most important pattern, habit, practice, and routine I can share with you. Discover them now. Write down 3 strengths. Even if you've only developed one. I don't know anybody who hasn't developed any strengths. I do know people who are living off of their weakness. They're just pushing it so hard. So hard. I've got another friend comes to mind. This guy is creative and he's spontaneous. But a lot of what he has to do is very rigid. You have to be at this place at this time and get this done. It's got to be so hard on him. It's got to be so hard on him. Now, he's got to do it for his job. But if he asked me, I'd say, hey, it's time to find a job where you have slightly less strict parameters. Let that artistic person out. But you also got to know your weakness. When I say know it, admit your weakness. You don't have to admit it to anybody else, but admit it to yourself. And stop feeding your weakness. You need to begin to develop and feed your strength and celebrate your strength or strengths. But man, find out where your weakness is and stop feeding it. Cut that thing off now. If it's discouragement, if it's procrastination, if it's, drinking, drug abuse, stealing. If you got a problem, if your weakness is, man, if I see $1, I got to take it. Please don't get a job in a bank. Please. That's not going to be a good place for you. If you're tempted by drugs, stay away from anything that has any job that has drugs in it. Admit your weakness and stop feeding it. I know it's simplistic, and I know some people watch this have problems with addiction. And I'm not trying to lump everybody, but you got to know what your weakness is. You got to admit it to yourself. I've got another friend. He really struggles, but when I ask him privately, just the two of us, oh no, I don't have a problem there. You don't have to tell me. You don't have to broadcast it. But when you're lying to yourself, I got another friend who's just, when I say a raging addict, he's got addictive behavior to the nth degree, and he knows it. And his number one thing that he says all the time, if you're going to lie to somebody else, and generally people acting in any kind of addictive behavior, you don't even have to be on drugs or alcohol. There's all sorts of, you can be a workaholic, you can be a gambling-aholic. The number one thing addictive people do is they lie. But then they start lying to themselves. You lie to yourself and you believe it, it's going to be the death of you. Know your weakness. I'm not looking down my nose at somebody everybody's got problems. Everybody's got strengths. Everybody's got weaknesses. Everybody's got positive. Everybody's got negatives. Admit them to yourself. Know what they are. I'd write them down. If you've got 2 or 3 or 4, now you start writing down 20, you've got too many. They're probably attacked. All of them are attached to 1 or 2 main weaknesses. Stop feeding it. Stop talking about it. Stop thinking about it. Stop identifying. You are not your weakness. Start letting your strength. You're not even your strengths. You're more than your strengths. But when you're showing to other people who you are, let them see your strengths. There was actually a TV station I was in. I was in one of the manager's offices, and it was a list of 10 things anybody can do. Show up on time was number 1. If you got a weakness where you're always late, I'm not telling you to work on it. I'm telling you to say that weakness is probably going to get you out of a lot of jobs or keep you out of a lot of jobs. So develop a strength. I'm going to be early. If you're showing up late to everything, you're probably procrastinating. So write those 3 weaknesses down. And you begin to develop a strength. I want to shine. I want to be number 1. I want to excel in my field. Well, you can't excel where you always show up late. And I used to show up to meetings as much as an hour late and count myself as on time. And I always had trouble at those jobs. Amazing. Can you imagine? I thought, okay, find your strengths. Start developing your strengths. Stop staring at your weakness. Stop staring at what you don't have. And say, look, I can plant. Here's my acorns. Here's my little acorn. Here's my acorn salt and pepper shakers. Here's my drawing of an acorn. You start a new habit, a new pattern. It's like taking an acorn and putting it in the ground. You keep working on it. You keep watering that thing. You protect it as it grows. And you're going to have an oak tree. You're going to have a strength that is so good and so valuable. People are going to want you in their life. They're going to want you on the job. They're going to want you in the situation. They're going to want to know, especially if they knew you before, how did you go from here to here? How did you do it? You started developing a strength. You identified it. You planted it as a seed. You planted it as an acorn, and then nurtured it and watched over it and worked on it. You can't do a new pattern one time and say, well, that's it. But you've got to know your strengths and work on them. Admit your weaknesses to you. Write a couple of them down and say, I'm going to stop feeding them. That's not who I am. Who I am is going to be associated with my strengths, with my victories, and not my failures. I'm Stephen Peterson. This program is called Patterns for Progress because I want you and I to progress. Thanks for watching.